Welcome to Product Mastery Now, where we simplify the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. These are the knowledge areas that help you increase your influence and also help you create products your customers love. I'm 𝐃𝐨𝐬𝐬𝐿. I'm a product management professor, practitioner, and the host of this podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. Those 7 knowledge areas for product mastery are based on PDMA's body of knowledge. And PDMA has an annual conference for product managers, leaders, and innovators. I love attending this conference. It is in September each year, and I'll be at the one in St. Louis, Missouri. That's September 14th to 17th. If you want to find out about it too and join me, go to pdma.org. Look forward to seeing you there. We're moving into the market research knowledge area. This is one of the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. We've been covering several before this in previous episodes if you want to go back and listen to those. Also, I'm doing this in a masterclass format, not my normal interview format. And there's a YouTube version to go along with this. If you want to see slides of what I'm talking about, simply go to YouTube and search for Product Mastery Now. But let's dive into what this market research area consists of. There's a number of topics. I'll just list them real quickly. Selecting the right market research methodology. There's several to choose from. We'll talk about a few of those in this episode. What primary versus secondary market research is used for. The quality of market research data itself. Some multivariate research methods. Product use testing, market testing, and test marketing. Easy to get confused between those two. Voice of the customer research, market research for each stage of the product innovation process, and then market research metrics and KPIs. And of course, there are several specific market research methods. I'm going to cover a few of those in this episode, but let's start by discussing the role of market research in product innovation. In the recent episode exploring portfolio management, I introduced product innovation as a risk versus reward decision process that's founded on sound information. And market research provides the information to aid that decision making throughout the product innovation process. And in turn, it helps us to reduce uncertainty, meaning that it minimizes risk. And a lot of the techniques that can be thought of as VOC tools, that's voice of the customer. And VOC, voice of the customer tools, are very important for us to understand. It's how we learn more about our customers. And there was a study done by the Aberdeen Group. They created a report called The Business Value of Building a Best-in-Class VOC Program. And they found, get this, that the best-in-class companies using VOC techniques enjoy an almost 10 times greater year-over-year increase in annual company revenue compared to all the other companies. That's 10 times, right? So that got my attention. Hopefully that gets your attention. It means that learning these VOC techniques and putting them to use can help your organization and in turn help you stand out as well. And VOC can help us answer many questions, such as what information are we looking for in product decision making? What opportunities are out there already, now and in the future, things that we can tackle? What do customers want or need? Those articulated versus our unarticulated needs. About what drives customers to purchase or repurchase a product. What value proposition should be built into our new product or our next product? What refinements should be made to make the product more acceptable? And will the customer buy the product? How often, where, and at what price? So VOC helps us just with this deeper understanding of customers' unmet needs, and then a lot of other elements that help us with decisions that the product team needs to make as we're creating and launching a product. And don't confuse VOC with simply asking customers what they want. It's not asking what they want. And why is that? Well, if we don't understand that clearly, it's because most customers just aren't very good at coming up with innovative solutions. Great voice of the customer research focuses on what the customer's trying to do, the job they want to accomplish, not just taking the job they're doing right now and making it a little bit better, but adding significantly new value. And what makes it hard or maybe easy for them to get it done, right? Kind of what's getting in the way, what could be different for them. An example of VOC is an interview I heard of from a warehouse manager for a large retailer that shared deliveries of GE light bulbs were taking twice as long to unload as a product from other suppliers. And it was discovered that GE packed the delivery truck by item, such as all 75-watt equivalent bulbs together, instead of packing them by purchase order, which would allow for the inventory to be confirmed much more quickly. Everything is all together for that order, for that delivery. So the research manager's job was to get items unloaded quickly and confirm inventory in the process. And changing how the GE trucks were packed helped to get that job done much better. So as we think about market research as having this emphasis on informing our decision-making process, the decisions that we need to make developing a new product, what we're going to develop, what features to include, etc. There's two approaches to this market research. We can look at qualitative methods and quantitative methods. And when we look at the qualitative methods, this implies that the data is not at a sufficient level to be statistically significant, but doesn't mean that it's not important to us, right? Qualitative data often leads to insights that can't be uncovered any other way. Quantitative data typically means we're dealing with a quantity, numbers, implies that the data itself can be statistically analyzed, providing us with a determination of the level of confidence of the result. But both of these are important. Qualitative to understand insights that might otherwise be missed, and quantitative to have confidence about decisions based on larger groups of people, larger amounts of information. And PDMA also makes a distinction between qualitative and quantitative research. That's where qualitative market research is used to show why people buy a particular product, whereas quantitative market research reveals how many people buy it. So why versus how many, right? Just the quantitative gives us more details about people's actions. A lot of insights come from qualitative. So I want to spend most of our time in this episode focusing on qualitative research methods. And these are important because, as I said, this is where we get insights. And we'll talk about some good examples along the way. And some of those research methods are focus groups, interviews, user observations, which is also known as ethnographic research, and customer site visits along with social media. There's others as well, but this gives us a good mix. And the first tool to examine are focus groups. And have you been part of one before? Maybe on the side of providing data, as a participant. Many people have for sure. A focus group generally consists of 8 to 12 people gathered in a room, and there's a facilitator or a moderator that is leading the discussion. And the discussion focuses on a customer problem or product or maybe a potential solution to a problem. And some organizations use a special meeting room with a one-way mirror so that others can also observe the focus group, though, without interrupting it in any way, without being a distraction. And screening questions are used to select the participants who should be part of a focus group. So you're getting the right people to address the problem that is being discussed in the focus group. And let's discuss some advantages and disadvantages of focus groups. First, advantages. The group can provide fresh insights and in-depth understanding. That's what we want. You can directly hear the words of consumers if you have screened properly, and in a sense, then the market itself. But hearing their words can be really powerful. And questions can be changed quickly to respond to the information that is being shared, right? We're going with the flow of the information that is there. And you can also observe behavior of the participants, especially in usage studies, right? If they're interacting with anything as well. But there's some disadvantages, of course. The group dynamics can suppress participation, that loud person who talks a lot, and if the moderator isn't controlling that. Also, there can be various interpretations of what is said by participants, and the conclusions may not be applicable outside of the focus group. They may not be generalizable to other groups. The value of a focus group is highly influenced by the skill of that moderator, by the facilitator. And that makes really all the difference in what you can get from a focus group. And when it comes to interpreting results of the focus group, care is needed to avoid bias. For example, if 8 out of 10 people in our focus group emphasize a particular need, does that mean that 80% of the target audience for the product also feels strongly about that need? Probably not, right? Be good to have some other information as well. But it might have uncovered an insight that could be important to us that we're not addressing. If you use focus groups, here are some good considerations. Never do a single focus group on a topic. You want 3 or more. Although not statistically reliable, this does provide greater confidence in the findings if you see some consistency in the responses between the focus groups, and it can help out with some of the issues with having single focus groups, like the person who's too loud, who's controlling the discussion. And make sure the facilitator or moderator has the necessary skill and background, essential to find someone who's good at this and has that experience. And focus groups should be well planned and well administered. And it's not simply bringing in a random group of people. It matters who we get there and then knowing how we're going to use that time together in the focus group. And watch out for focus group veterans. These are people who regularly participate in focus groups. And one reason for that is simply because many companies will pay or otherwise incentivize participants to attend a focus group. And so some of the same people show up over and over. That might not be the right fit for what you're looking for. Also, recognize that focus groups are not a quantitative technique. They certainly are a qualitative. So we can't make statistical conclusions. But once again, we're looking for those new insights that might otherwise be difficult to uncover. And personally, I don't like focus groups. I find too many disadvantages with them, and I avoid using them. There's other techniques that I would much prefer to use and do. But I have talked with skilled moderators who use them successfully, and some organizations, this is their routine go-to tool. I would just make sure it fits what you're trying to accomplish. And once we talk about some of the other ones, that will certainly help. So let's move on to in-depth interviews, talking to possible consumers or maybe customers of our competitors, people that fit the problem that we're looking into. And unlike a focus group, they're conducted typically one-on-one, like you're talking to one customer at a time or one customer representative, unlike the focus group, which was that group of, say 8 to 10 people. And researchers have found that as few as 6 interviews can be really helpful for uncovering new insights. But if you conduct between 20 and 30 interviews, you're almost certainly going to find pretty conclusively almost all of the insights that can be uncovered there. That number surprises some people, right? I find many practitioners that are working with 6 to 8 people, not too many, to get new insights. And statistically, we do know from other research that's been done in this area, when you're interviewing 20-ish sort of people, you're going to get 90% of what can be uncovered and possibly more. You'll start hearing the same things over and over. As an example, I was at a conference once hearing the CEO of Gatorade, and she shared that at the time Gatorade was not doing well, Powerade had come into the market and they were losing market share as a sport beverage. And they turned around the company, in her words, turned around the company based on interviews with 12 high school athletes. Right? Uncovering insights about how people use the product and what they really need. So I'm a big fan of qualitative research for those new insights. Once again, interviews, these can be conducted in person or over a phone or a web conference. And personally, I find that web conference can be really effective. Obviously, if we can get in front of people, that's great, right? To have a better experience with their body language and what they're saying. But the web conference, it works quite well, and that video can enhance the communication channel about what we're learning from them as well. So good way to manage interviews if you can do it by web conference, if you can't meet in person. And some of the pros and cons of interviews. First, on the pro side, it provides details and context along with language and emotions and relationships for each area explored. We just hear more, right? Their body language says more. How they say things, the tone of how a person is talking about things can really be advantageous to what we're uncovering. And then we can ask questions about size or emphasis that was added. Also, they're designed to be more open-ended, so we can explore the information that emerges throughout the discussion, which may also be used to further understand quantitative findings that we follow up with later. And they can be more relaxed and personal, providing richer and deeper insights. But there's some disadvantages as well on the con side here. They're potentially more time-consuming and costly than other approaches. I think that's a minor issue for given the insights that we can get, but that has come up. They are subject to participant availability. We have to find people, obviously, to interview, but that's pretty much true for many things in customer research. The skills of the interview do influence the quality of the information collected. Just like, if you're going to do focus groups, you need a really skilled moderator. Same is true for doing interviews, but this is something that can be practiced and learned, and I encourage people to just try, right? Do a few, and you will get better at it over time. But you can ask questions that end up kind of leading the customer, and they can bias the information that's being shared. We want to be very careful with that and make sure the questions are not leading. And as with other qualitative approaches, the information may not be generalizable to a larger target market. We want to be careful about betting the farm, so to speak, on what we learn without having other insights that what we learned does reflect a larger customer base. Let's talk about ethnographic market research. So we just did interviews. Ethnographic market research is focused on observations of customers, and it's derived from the field of anthropology, the study of others to understand their culture and lifestyle. And ethnographic research helps you understand the customer in their environment. That's what we're trying to ideally do, is see how they encounter problems in their environment and what they're doing to solve those. Unlike focus groups, ethnographic utilizes a variety of techniques, providing the opportunity to create a complete picture of customers and how the products and services fit into their daily lives. Kind of taking that step with the customer and in a way observing what it is like to be in their shoes because we're observing the customers. Ethnographic research is conducted on site, right? We're in their environment where the consumer is utilizing a product or encountering a problem. That could be anywhere, a restaurant, a store, their office, a car, at home. And conducting that place-based research allows for us to observe the consumer's behavior and how they carry it out. As the consumer does what they're doing, right? We're observing that. It also provides an opportunity for follow-up questions as needed. So we don't have to just observe, but I also want to be careful about not breaking up their flow, right, by asking questions along the way. They'll get used to us just interrupting and asking questions. So I like to do customer ethnographic research, observation research, by observing, collecting notes along the way, and then asking questions at the end of the process, at the end of the problem, at the end of using the product. An example of this is when Hyundai created an ethnographic research program to gain insights for redesigning a crossover utility vehicle. And they named their program the Touch the Market. The researchers not only rode as passengers with consumers on the target market segment, but they also visited their homes, experienced their lives, and how they used the cars. It was a deep immersion for them to gain valuable insights that increase sales. And they did this also rapidly and kind of on the cheap. It sounds like a big program, but it was done quickly to understand how their customers are interacting with their vehicles. One advantage of ethnographic research is that it provides the opportunity to identify the issues that are truly valued by the customer. And also, in traditional interviewing or surveying, people are maybe unwilling or unable to identify the characteristics and benefits that they desire in a product. Right? If we're asking those more direct questions, we often get answers that are consistent with, well, we want it to be easier to use, faster results, cheaper for us, not particularly deeper insights. But ethnographic research gives us a way to go much deeper to understand benefits that we could create in a product for them. And this is particularly so with new products or the next version, a significant next version of a product, which are already unfamiliar to customers, right? We're trying to understand their problem more deeply so we can create a new product to address that problem. Ethnography is a great way to get those insights, to understand something in depth, and then help us deliver on a product. Of course, there's once again advantages and disadvantages. It's not all roses and unicorns, even though this is my favorite tool. Personally, it can take longer to carry out, especially if the researcher is seeking a broad representation of the target market. Consequently, it can be more expensive to do user observation. It does rely on interpretation of the research based on what is observed, and this means that those conducting the research must be skilled and properly trained, especially in techniques for reducing their own biases. We're not trying to confirm what we already think, right? We want to be open to learning what is actually going on with the customer. And also, as is the case with all qualitative approaches, it's not officially statistically reliable, right? We can't get confidence information out of this for making decisions, but we can uncover insights that may be really important to our market base. And one of my favorite examples of the importance of ethnography is this one that I read about, and we wrote about this in a book that I helped out with. Product designers were planning for a new model of a farm tractor, and they decided to hold a focus group to verify their plans. And the farmers at the focus group were asked about their tractors. Right? So focus group, discuss what you like, what you don't like about your tractor. One farmer responded that his tractor was perfect, and he was emphatic about this, right? And he asked that the next model not be changed at all. We probably wouldn't need a new model then, but he was so happy with the tractor as is. So being an astute consumer researcher, the people that were involved, they didn't just accept that at face value, and they followed up outside of the focus group with a in-home interview. They wanted to get more insights from him and understand why he was so committed to the existing model. But he reiterated his position during the interview that the tractor was perfect as is. And they still didn't accept this feedback at face value, and they asked if they could see the tractor that he loved so much. And then he proudly showed them his perfect tractor, which he had personally customized with over 20 modifications. Wow. Okay. So all this time he was saying that the product he had was perfect. It was only after the in-person observation that the researchers recognized that he made it perfect for him, right? Adding these 20 modifications to it, making it perfect for that customer. So taking the time to go out and talk to that customer in their environment, and then also observing in this case, changes he had made, really important. So definitely something that they did well in this customer research. So their flow in here was, they first did the focus groups and asked customers for ideas, and then they visited customers in their homes asking for ideas, and then they observed customers actually using their tractors and showing them showing the researchers what they liked about the tractors. So good process to get more details. Okay, let's move on to another tool. This is customer site visits. And as you might suspect, it simply means that we are visiting the customer in their environment. And it is one of the tools that's most commonly used by businesses that are serving other businesses, B2B environments. And here's how it works. One or more people from a vendor will directly interact with one or more customers, or maybe a potential customer that the vendor has. And the person doing the site visit is generally outside of sales and customer support, right? So this isn't a sales call. So it could be certainly a product manager doing this work. And the visits may be ad hoc, but they also are typically planned in advance. And we have lined people up to talk about, and they understand what we're going to talk about. But we want to be in their environment again, visiting the customer. Some advantages of customer visits include having that face-to-face communication. It helps us capture more information than just what is said, especially when it's on the customer's premises, right, in their environment. There might be other distractions that actually gives us further insights about new problems we might be able to solve for them. And also, they often provide the opportunity to see the product in use, right? Observe firsthand the strengths and weaknesses as the customer deals with our product, if that's our environment right now, to see how our product is doing. And then we have opportunities to discuss what improvements that we can make for the customer and how they think about it. So advantages, disadvantages of this approach. So advantages: customer visits are especially useful when there's technical staff involved so that they can understand the customer's needs better and then be able to translate that into product design specifications. This is a best practice that I very much like to do, is getting people involved who are actually developing the product also out to be meeting with the customer to better understand the problem. Also, because they do lead to that better understanding by the team, it can promote also better communication for the product team themselves and create better cohesion among that product team, so we can do a better job together once we all understand the customer. We've had that firsthand interaction with them. Some disadvantages for customer visits: they can be highly dependent on asking the right questions, just like interviews. So we want to make sure we have someone involved who is understanding how to conduct interviews first, and then having some information probably about our product, if that's the proper context, as well as the customer's context as well. And you need someone that's properly skilled and experienced with that product knowledge to conduct the customer visit. If we don't have good product knowledge, then it's going to be more challenging for us. If again, that has to be the focus of the customer visit, if that's relevant. But sending a representative from your company with limited product knowledge can have a detrimental impact on the customer relationship and lead to unreliable information, right? They'll see through this. And so a simple situation where someone who really shouldn't be interviewing the customer because they don't understand the product, that can feel icky in the first place, and why are you wasting my time, but not lead to good information and not help the reputation of the company you're serving as well. Also, if your company is supplying a number of customers, comments and suggestions from one or two of these may not represent the views of the majority. We've all had this, I don't know if we've all had this, but certainly a common situation is, say, when the CEO visits a key customer and comes back all excited about something that the CEO uncovered. And that may be a fantastic opportunity. It also may be isolated to that single customer, or other customers may think about the problem very differently. So we want to do our work and make sure we're representing a market and not just single customers. But this is where insights come from initially, is through those customer interactions. So some considerations if you're doing customer visits. First, be sure to coordinate visits with sales representatives and elicit their support. That can be really valuable for you. These are not sales calls, but the salespeople can provide access to customers, and they're going to be protective of their customer relationships. So they want to understand what you're doing, but if you're doing the interviews, you're bringing value to the salespeople by providing new information for the customers, perhaps, at least showing that we care about the customer and we want to solve their problems. You also want to include the customer representatives who are the decision makers or influencers. These roles are part of the buying process, right? Not just the people using the product. Again, in that context where we're seeing how our product is used and then perhaps trying to make it better. The end user is certainly very important, but in a B2B setting, there are other roles that we also have to satisfy, such as the people reviewing new products for purchase, part of that buying decision. And when applicable, certainly try to get beyond the meeting room, right? You might just first get together with the customer in some meeting room to start, but you want to set up the expectations in advance that you want to go into the environment where the applicable products are being used, so that you can have that as part of the customer visit, get some observation research done at the same time. And ask customers to identify problems, right? If they suggest solutions, listen and accept their input, right? Don't start telling them why they're wrong. I've actually seen this happen too many times in interviews and customer visits. We're not there to tell them how they're using our product wrong, how they're using it badly, but really to understand what's going on so we can make the product better. And also take some samples, right? Bring along a camera, make clear observations, sketch in a book what's going on, collect the data that you can for what you're getting out of the customer visit. Okay, let's move on to another topic, which is social media all around us. It's another good tool for where we can get information. Social media is regularly used for co-creation and input into ideation and design phases, right? It gives us ideas from what people are talking about. And driving awareness and promotion as well. As we launch a product or getting ready to improve a new product, we can certainly use it to create awareness. Social listening is one aspect of this. It's a type of market research that monitors digital conversations and analyzes what customers are saying about specific topics. And there's a number of automated tools that do this now, such as sentiment tools, sentiment analysis to identify if there's generally a positive or negative perception of a product in different social media aspects. And the number of tools and the use of social listening is certainly growing, with the majority of marketers listing social media as the most effective channel for collecting current market data, right? This is sentiment data, how people feel, what they're talking about, how they're reacting to a product or challenges with it. And consequently, because the tools are getting much better at collecting the data for you, if you're willing to invest in some of those tools, this is an easy way to get information about what's going on now. An example is how McDonald's, after analyzing social media conversations, began offering its all-day breakfast menu. Now, they don't all do this anymore. I'm not sure if any of them do. I have mixed results. I don't get to McDonald's very often. But this was a big deal, being able to get breakfast all day because people wanted it. It was being talked about, and so they responded. Also, companies they're not only using social listening, but they're integrating social media into their work, right? Into projects that they're taking on or trying to understand what customers are wanting. Nike, for example, they've used Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and other sites. They even created their own platform called Nike Plus, which now has changed a bit, but is now the Nike membership. But it attracted several million members who provide insights about existing products and ideas for future products, right? You're using that crowdsourcing sort of approach to get people to help you, in some sense, co-design with you and provide ideas. Social media has opened up just such a raft of ways of interacting with and sourcing information from our customers, from the marketplace. In social media networks, online blogs, discussion forums, right? All those different mediums, they provide us ways with engaging with our customers. If we go down this path, we want to make sure we have a good plan and the resources for that engagement. And we can also not be engaged, but use this as a passive tool for getting insights about what's being talked about now. So for advantages and disadvantages of social media, one advantage is that it can provide immediate contact with current and potential markets, right? People are already participating in social media networks, and it's easy for us to engage with them. It does allow targeting to be very specific, so we can get to specific audiences, and it lets us engage with a loyal following of supporters or lead users to get insights and test ideas out with them. Disadvantages, the information can be biased. We certainly want to be aware that sometimes there's more negative information shared on social networks, and there can be biased information we don't want to be misled by. It can be difficult to maintain control of the exchange of information, and when organizations try to control the conversation, that usually ends up going the wrong way. We want to use it as a way to gain insights, and that's, at least from a product management perspective, what we're trying to accomplish. Once again, it doesn't have statistical confidence. It's a qualitative tool. And we do have to question the quality of the information sometimes because it may be influenced by social media reciprocity, that practice of automatically liking and sharing with a network of friends. And if bots get a hold of the information, things can give indications that there's more interest than there may really be. Okay, let's look at the value of social media for our decision making. Once again, that's what market research is all about, is to provide us data for decision making, information for decision making. And social media provides an excellent source of information on what people are doing and thinking now, right? It's based on the now. Both individuals and organizations, that this can lead to some new opportunities for us. It can help us understand what customers want or need. It can provide the product manager, the product team, with a broad canvas of information related to the market and specific market segments. If we're using social media, and many product people are, we just want to be aware of what it can do for us and where we should be careful thinking about it. It's good with understanding where people might be upset with a product or capability, and also getting information about some needs through the way they think about what the product should do for them. Like all of these tools, we shouldn't rely on just one. If we're only getting information from social media, I would be rather nervous about that situation. I have a question for you, which is simply, of these qualitative approaches we discuss, focus groups, interviews, ethnography, site visits, and social media, which of those research methods have you used, right? And what are your examples of learnings from them? When did you put interviews to good use, and what did you think about that process? Was that a good outcome for you? Did you find the data that you wanted? Was it easy to use? Did you uncover some good things? Was it good use of time and money, the resources involved, or not, right? So think about what you've done before for research, and if there's some other tools that maybe you should try as well. If you're in an organization that always uses focus groups, or like the majority of the time, well, maybe we should set up some interviews instead, some customer site visits if possible, or web-based interviews, or maybe some ethnographic research. Also, what research method would you want to get more experience with, right? So when I'm working with organizations and talking about the tools that they're actually using now, the market research methods, there's often kind of the go-to when they're doing market research, and there's probably some other tools that should be added for other kinds of situations. So think about which ones that might help you. I'm as guilty as anyone. My go-tos are interviews in some form that might be customer site visits, that might be remote that are set up, but interviews are useful, and ethnographic research. And there's times that I probably need to branch out and think about some others as well. Okay, so covered a few of the qualitative tools. There's certainly a lot of quantitative research methods we could talk about as well. Things like surveys, customer panels, consumer panels, concept tests and concept sorts, sensory testing, eye tracking, biometric feedback, crowdsourcing, and big data. We would never use all of these approaches for any one product. It certainly depends what you are creating and what kind of problem that you are addressing. But once again, important to be aware that there are multiple tools that we can use, and that they get used for different purposes. And so we want to understand those purposes. Once again, there's a lot in market research that we could talk about that I'm not going into this episode. If you want to learn more about market research, as well as those other knowledge areas, of the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery, you can use the book that I helped to write for PDMA. That's called the Product Development and Management Body of Knowledge, a guidebook for product innovation training and certification. That's the 3rd edition. Or check out my online training course at productmasterynow.com/RPM. You have a 30% discount available to you as well. Simply use the discount code PODCAST, that's PODCAST, when you go to that website and order any of the training there. I want to leave you with a quote. This quote is from Alice in Wonderland. "If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." The whole purpose of market research is to understand where we are going. That's why we're doing the market research. And I think about market research, as we just went through in terms of the voice of the customer tools, as consumer research, where we are trying to identify specific customers who have unmet needs, who still have issues with the problem that they are wanting to purchase a solution for, or they already purchased a solution for, and there's still unmet needs and still part of the aspects of the problem to work out there. And that gives us a path to know where we're going, as opposed to not knowing where we're going to end up. So it doesn't really matter what road we take to get there. Market research gives us that road to go down. Once again, I appreciate you listening to this episode. You will find the written summary of everything we discussed at productmasterynow.com/492. As always, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.